There comes a moment in life when you finally realize something that may take decades to understand. You can spend your entire life trying to make other people happy and still never feel at peace yourself. Maybe you know this feeling. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay quiet because you don't want to upset someone. You explain your decisions again and again, hoping someone will finally understand. You worry about what your family thinks, what your friends think, what your neighbors think, what people will say. And sometimes, even after you've done everything you could, someone still isn't satisfied. So you try harder, you explain more, you give more, you compromise more, and slowly, without even noticing it, you begin living a life designed around other people's expectations. But here's the uncomfortable question. When did you stop asking what you wanted? After 50, this question becomes especially important because you've already spent decades proving yourself. You worked, you raised families, you carried responsibilities, you made sacrifices, you survived difficult seasons that nobody else may even know about. And yet, many people reach this stage of life still trying to prove that they're good enough for their children, good enough for their relatives, good enough for their friends, good enough for society. But Buddhist wisdom points toward a very different way of living. It teaches us to look carefully at attachment, and attachment doesn't only mean being attached to money or possessions. We can become attached to something much more subtle: the need to be accepted, the need to be liked, the need to be understood, the need to be approved of. And when your peace depends on another person's opinion, you've quietly handed them control over your emotions. Think about that. If someone praises you, you feel good. If someone criticizes you, you feel terrible. If someone agrees with you, you feel secure. If someone disagrees, you begin questioning yourself. Your emotional state rises and falls according to someone else's judgment. That's exhausting. And the older you become, the more valuable your peace becomes. There's a beautiful lesson hidden here. You don't need everyone to understand your life for your life to be meaningful. Some people will misunderstand you. Let them. Some people will disagree with your choices. Let them. Some people may never recognize the sacrifices you made. Let them. This doesn't mean becoming cold or selfish. It means learning the difference between being a good person and being a person who desperately needs everyone to approve of them. Those aren't the same thing. Imagine an older man who spent most of his life trying to keep everyone happy. He worked hard because he wanted his family to be proud of him. He bought things he couldn't always afford because he wanted to look successful. He avoided difficult conversations because he didn't want people to dislike him. He said yes when he was exhausted. He apologized even when he hadn't done anything wrong. And one day, sitting quietly by himself, he realized something painful. Most of the people whose approval he had spent his life chasing were busy living their own lives. They weren't thinking about him nearly as much as he had imagined, and suddenly he understood how much energy he had given away. Perhaps you've done something similar. Perhaps you spent years worrying about what people would say, but here's something worth remembering. People are going to have opinions, whether you live your life honestly or not. So why not live honestly? At this stage of life, perhaps the question isn't, what will they think of me? Perhaps the better question is, am I living according to what I know to be right? Because peace begins when you stop asking the entire world for permission to be yourself. You can respect people without obeying every opinion they have about you. You can love your family without allowing them to control every decision. You can listen to advice without surrendering your judgment. And you can be kind without becoming a prisoner of other people's expectations. Remember this, you're not responsible for everyone's opinion of you. You're responsible for the way you live. The kindness you show, the honesty you practice, the choices you make, and the person you become. So, if you're over 50, perhaps it's time to stop chasing approval. Not because other people don't matter, but because your peace matters too. And once you stop needing everyone to approve of your life, something extraordinary happens. You become lighter. You become quieter inside. You stop explaining every decision. You stop fighting every misunderstanding. And you begin to discover something that no amount of praise can give you: inner freedom. But there's another thing many people spend their entire lives chasing, and this one is even more difficult to recognize. Because society has taught us to believe that the more we have, the safer and happier we'll become. That brings us to the second thing you may need to stop chasing after 50. Let's be clear about something. Money matters. There's nothing wise about pretending it doesn't. Money can provide security. It can pay for medicine. It can support your family. It can give you choices. It can protect you from certain difficulties. So this isn't a lesson about rejecting money. It's about something much deeper. When does enough become enough? Because many people spend their entire lives moving the finish line. They tell themselves, once I earn a little more, I'll finally relax. Once I get that promotion, I'll have time for myself. Once I buy that house, I'll feel secure. Once I have enough savings, I'll stop worrying. But then something happens. They reach the number they were chasing, and the mind creates another number. They reach the next level, and suddenly there's another level. They buy something, and soon they want something else. The goal keeps moving, and without realizing it, a person can spend 40 years preparing to enjoy the life they never actually stopped to enjoy. This is where Buddhist wisdom becomes incredibly relevant. One of the central ideas in Buddhism is craving, the restless desire that says, what I have right now isn't enough. I need something else before I can be at peace. Notice the difference. There's nothing wrong with having goals. There's nothing wrong with improving your financial situation. There's nothing wrong with wanting a comfortable retirement. The problem begins when you make your peace dependent on the next achievement. Because if you tell yourself, I'll be happy when I have more, you're teaching your mind that happiness must always exist somewhere in the future. And the future never arrives as you imagined it. You reach tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes today. You reach the next milestone, and immediately another one appears. So you keep running. And eventually you may ask yourself, what exactly was I running toward? Think about the person who spent his entire life working. Early mornings, late nights, missed dinners, missed vacations, years of saying, not now, maybe later. He did it because he loved his family. He wanted security. He wanted to give his children opportunities he never had. There's dignity in that. But imagine reaching 60 or 70 and suddenly realizing that your children have grown up. The house is quieter, your career is behind you, and the thing you kept saying you'd enjoy one day has arrived. This is why the lesson isn't don't make money. The lesson is don't sacrifice your entire life in exchange for something you may never feel you have enough of. There's a difference between financial responsibility and endless accumulation. There's a difference between wanting security and believing that one more possession will finally silence your fear. Ask yourself, how much is enough for a peaceful life? Enough to live with dignity, enough to care for yourself, enough to help those you love, enough to sleep without constantly worrying about tomorrow. But beyond that, perhaps the question becomes less about how much more can I get, and more about how much more can I appreciate. Because at some point, the greatest luxury isn't another possession, it's time. A quiet morning, a meaningful conversation, a walk without rushing. sitting with someone you love, watching the sunset, having the freedom to say, "I have enough." And perhaps one of the greatest lessons of growing older is discovering that more and enough are not the same thing. More can always be added, but enough is a decision. And if you never decide what enough means, you can spend your entire life chasing a finish line that doesn't exist. So don't misunderstand this teaching. Buddhist wisdom isn't asking you to abandon ambition. It's asking you to examine the mind behind your ambition. Are you building wealth because it serves your life? Or are you building wealth because you're afraid that without more, you're not safe, successful, or worthy? Those are very different things. Because when money becomes your identity, no amount of money will ever feel like enough. But when money becomes a tool rather than a master, something changes. You can use it without being controlled by it. You can appreciate what you have without constantly comparing it to what someone else has. And you can finally begin asking a more important question. What's the point of having a life if I never have time to actually live it? After 50, perhaps the goal isn't to chase everything you once thought would make you happy. Perhaps the goal is to become wise enough to recognize what already deserves your gratitude. Because there are still 5 things left to let go of, and the next one may be the hardest of all: the past. Thing number 1, stop chasing other people's approval. There's another kind of chasing that can quietly consume an entire lifetime. You may not even realize you're doing it. You don't run after it. You don't work overtime for it. You don't spend money on it. And yet, you can spend decades desperately trying to get it. The approval of other people. Think about how often you've changed your behavior because of what someone else might think. Maybe you wanted to make a decision, but you stopped because you thought your family wouldn't approve. Maybe you wanted to live differently, but you worried about what your friends would say. Maybe you bought something, wore something, said something, or even stayed silent because you were thinking about the opinions of the people around you. And sometimes you may have spent years trying to maintain an image: the successful person, the responsible parent, the respectable neighbor, the person who always has everything under control. But here's the question: how much of that life was actually yours? And how much of it was built around the expectations of other people? For many people, this becomes especially painful as they grow older, because after 50, you may begin to realize that time isn't unlimited. You begin to understand that your energy is precious, your peace is precious, your remaining years are precious, and suddenly, spending your life worrying about whether everyone approves of you doesn't seem as important as it once did. But letting go of approval isn't always easy, because we're social beings. We want to belong. We want to be respected. We want the people we love to understand us. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem begins when your peace becomes dependent on their approval. If your happiness depends on people agreeing with you, you'll always be vulnerable to disagreement. If your confidence depends on praise, criticism will destroy it. If your identity depends on being liked, rejection will make you question your worth. And this is where Buddhist wisdom gives us something very important to understand. Attachment creates suffering. We often think attachment means holding tightly to possessions. But attachment can also be psychological. We can become attached to an image of ourselves. We can become attached to the idea that people must see us in a certain way. We can become attached to being respected, admired, understood, accepted. And when reality doesn't match that expectation, we suffer. Imagine spending years believing, my children must understand my decisions, my friends must respect my choices, my neighbors must think I'm successful, people must see me as a good person. Then someone disagrees with you, someone criticizes you, someone misunderstands you, and suddenly your peace disappears. Why? Because you weren't simply hoping for approval, you'd become attached to it. And there's a difference between wanting approval and needing approval. You can appreciate someone's praise without depending on it. You can listen to criticism without allowing it to define you. You can love people without requiring them to agree with every decision you make. That's where freedom begins. Let me give you a simple story. Imagine a man named David. David spent most of his adult life trying to be the person everyone expected him to be. He worked hard. He provided for his family. He kept his home looking respectable. He tried to make his children proud. He wanted his friends to see him as successful. And whenever he made an important decision, he didn't first ask, "What do I believe is right?" Instead, he asked, "What will people think?" So he made choices based on appearances. He stayed in situations that made him unhappy because leaving would raise questions. He avoided saying what he truly felt because he didn't want to disappoint people. He sometimes spent money on things he didn't really need because he wanted to maintain a certain image. And whenever someone criticized him, he'd spend hours thinking about it. One day, when David was older, he sat alone in his home. His children had their own lives. His friends were busy with theirs. The neighborhood had changed. And he suddenly began thinking about all the decisions he'd made. He realized something uncomfortable. The people whose approval he'd spent decades chasing hadn't been thinking about him nearly as much as he'd imagined. They had their own problems, their own insecurities, their own families, their own worries. They'd been living their lives, and David had been spending his life worrying about what they thought of his. That realization changed something inside him. He didn't suddenly stop caring about people. He didn't become selfish. He simply stopped making other people's opinions the ruler of his life. And perhaps this is something you need to hear too. Most people are thinking about themselves far more than they're thinking about you. The person you're afraid will judge you? They may be worrying about their own problems. The neighbor whose opinion concerns you, they may barely remember what you did yesterday. The friend you're trying desperately to impress, they may be struggling with their own private battles. And yet, we can allow imagined judgments to control real decisions. We spend energy explaining ourselves to people who never asked for an explanation. We defend choices that don't require defending. We try to prove that we're good enough, successful enough, important enough. But perhaps after 50, you've earned the right to stop performing for an audience that was never really watching. You don't have to explain every decision. You don't have to convince everyone. You don't have to win every disagreement. And you certainly don't have to spend your remaining years trying to become the person everyone else wants you to be. This doesn't mean ignoring wise advice. It doesn't mean refusing to admit when you're wrong. And it doesn't mean treating other people with disrespect. Quite the opposite. True inner strength allows you to listen without becoming controlled. You can hear someone's opinion and still make your own decision. You can accept criticism without turning it into self-hatred. You can love someone deeply and still say, "I respect your opinion, but this is the path I've chosen." That's not arrogance, that's maturity. And perhaps this is one of the gifts of growing older. You begin to understand that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. And not every person needs to approve of you. Your task is much simpler. Live according to your values. Be honest. Be kind. Be responsible. Be compassionate. Do what you believe is right. And then allow other people to have their opinions. Because the moment you stop trying to control what everyone thinks about you, you begin getting your life back. Your mind becomes quieter. Your decisions become clearer, your relationships become more honest, and you discover that peace doesn't come from getting everyone to approve of you. It comes from no longer needing everyone to. So if you're over 50, ask yourself tonight, how much of my life am I still living for other people's approval? And then ask something even more important. If I stopped worrying about what everyone else thought, what would I do differently with the life I have left? Maybe you'd finally say no. Maybe you'd forgive someone. Maybe you'd start something you've been postponing. Maybe you'd spend more time with the people who genuinely matter. Or maybe you'd simply become comfortable being yourself. And that may be one of the greatest forms of freedom you can experience. Because you've spent enough years proving who you are, now you can simply become who you truly are. Thing number 2, stop chasing more money as the answer to peace. Once you stop chasing the approval of other people, you may begin to notice another question hiding underneath your ambitions. A question many people spend their entire lives avoiding. How much is actually enough? Because for much of our lives, we're taught to believe the answer is always a little more. A little more money, a little more savings, a bigger house, a better car, a higher position, a more comfortable retirement. And there's nothing wrong with wanting financial security. Money matters. It can provide shelter, it can provide food, it can help you care for your family, it can give you access to better opportunities and greater freedom. So this isn't a lesson telling you to stop earning money. It's asking you to look at something much deeper. Are you using money to build a peaceful life? Or are you sacrificing your peaceful life to chase more money? There's a difference, and sometimes we don't recognize that difference until many years have passed. Think about the way we talk to ourselves. We'll relax when we have enough saved. We'll travel when we retire. I'll spend more time with my family when work slows down. I'll enjoy life when I reach the next level. And then the next level arrives. But instead of feeling satisfied, we move the finish line. Now we need a little more. And after that, a little more again. The destination keeps moving, and suddenly 20 or 30 years have passed. This is where one of the deepest ideas in Buddhist wisdom becomes relevant. Craving. Craving isn't simply wanting something. Wanting can be healthy. You can want a comfortable home. You can want financial stability. You can want to provide for your children. You can want to improve your life. But craving goes further. Craving says, I cannot be at peace until I get this. And once you get it, the mind immediately finds something else. I need more. I need better. I need newer. I need what they have. I need to make sure I never fall behind. And the mind becomes trapped in a cycle where enough never actually arrives. Imagine a man who spent 40 years working. He woke before sunrise. He worked long hours. He missed dinners. He postponed holidays. There were birthdays he couldn't attend. There were quiet evenings with his wife that he sacrificed for one more deadline. He wasn't necessarily greedy. He was trying to build a good life. He wanted his family to be secure. He wanted his children to have opportunities. He wanted to make sure that one day they wouldn't struggle the way he had struggled. And perhaps there's something admirable about that. But every time he reached one financial goal, another appeared. When he reached a certain salary, he wanted a higher one. When he bought one house, he thought about a bigger one. When his savings reached a certain number, he became worried it wasn't enough. So he kept working, he kept accumulating, he kept postponing, until one day he finally had what he'd spent his entire life working toward: financial security, a comfortable home, savings, no more major career responsibilities. He'd finally reached the moment when he was supposed to relax. But something unexpected happened. He didn't know how to stop. His body had learned how to work. His mind had learned how to worry. His entire identity had been built around achieving the next thing, and now there was no next thing. So even though he had more money than he'd ever had, he still felt like he was running. This is the trap. You can accumulate wealth without accumulating peace. You can increase your possessions without increasing your happiness. You can make your bank account larger while your life becomes smaller. And this is why the question isn't simply, how much money do I have? The deeper question is, what's my relationship with money? Does money serve you, or does it control you? Can you enjoy what you have, or are you constantly comparing yourself to someone who has more? Can you say, I have enough, without immediately feeling that you're falling behind? Because there will almost always be someone with a bigger house, someone with a better car, someone with more investments, someone with a larger retirement account, someone taking more expensive vacations. If you measure your life against everyone else's life, you'll never arrive. There will always be another mountain, another target, another number, another person to compare yourself with. And after 50, perhaps the question deserves to change. Instead of asking, what else can I acquire? You might begin asking, what can I finally appreciate? A quiet morning, a healthy conversation, a meal with someone you love, the ability to walk outside without rushing, a cup of tea in silence, a phone call from someone who genuinely cares about you, the freedom to choose how you spend your day. These things may look ordinary, but when you grow older, you begin to understand that ordinary moments are often the moments that become precious, because life doesn't always take away the things we thought were valuable. Sometimes it takes away our time, and time is something money cannot buy back. You can replace a car, you can replace a house, you can earn money again, but you cannot purchase another afternoon with someone you love. You cannot go back and attend the childhood your children have already lived. You cannot buy another conversation with someone who has passed away. You cannot save enough money to purchase yesterday.